While social media may be filled with information that is both true and false, what we do know is that it's increasingly coming under the control of big social media giants. Well, now Facebook has decided that a new kind of message is one that shall be labeled as verboten, that being spreading the idea that you could choose not to vote. During Facebook's second annual civil rights audit, Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg has decided to create a policy that would prohibit people from creating ads that suggest or encourage people not to vote in the upcoming U.S. elections that are set to take place on November 5th. In the previous year, Facebook has made the decision to ban posts that spread misinformation on voting methods, election dates and times, and polling locations. Right now, the don't vote policy is still under development and applies only to the United States. In the future, it may apply to other countries as well. Facebook does say that this will not affect organic posts by users. So if you just say that you don't want to vote or that people shouldn't vote, that's fine. But if there is a political ad that's created that tells people not to vote or that voting doesn't matter, that will be what's breaking the rules. This comes off the heels of allegations of election interference by Russia in the previous presidential election, an accusation that thus far has not been corroborated with any significant evidence. Since then, the social media giant has sought to control the political landscape on what are supposed to be a free speech platform. Many critics are worried that this is a step further in the violation of people's freedom of speech. Well, this certainly says something about the state of the so-called democracy in the U.S., otherwise known as bourgeois democracy. It is verboten to actually have the opinion to tell people not to vote. Now, we're not saying you can't say it. We're saying you can't put out something that expresses that idea to a large audience. But this is not censorship. You're allowed to say it. You're just not allowed to say it in a way that a lot of people would actually hear. I think that pretty much says everything that needs to be said about that. I mean, think about it. What does that mean about your democracy when you're not allowed to even say, what's the point of voting, or even to say that you're not going to vote, or to encourage others to not participate in an illegitimate system by not voting? In other countries, it's mandatory by law that someone has to vote. For example, in Australia, you can be criminally charged for refusing to vote in an election. Well, that certainly says something about your democracy, doesn't it? Yeah, we have a freedom of choice so long as you make a choice at gunpoint, or what is essentially a gunpoint. But I think that's very interesting that this comes out at this time. A lot of people don't believe in the so-called American democracy. They see it as a complete fraud. And it is. It is just competing interests between the bourgeoisie. And now the point of being a Marxist is to recognize this, see how this goes against the working class, and then form a revolution, overthrow it, and install an entirely new system of democracy. But of course, not everybody is a Marxist. So there's still a lot of people that realize that the vote really doesn't matter. The bourgeoisie win no matter what, and that it's not going to make a difference. And many of those people choose not to participate in the elections. And a lot of people are actually kept out of the elections through various nefarious means carried out mostly by the Republican Party. But I think to some degree or another, people generally know that the system isn't real, that you don't really have a choice. And that is reflected in the rates of which people vote in the U.S. And there's a very large portion of the population that chooses not to vote in every election because of this. And that really says something about American democracy, that at least the bourgeoisie are now worried about it. They're worried that their whole phony democracy is going to collapse when people in large enough numbers stop believing in it. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.